Up next, What's in it for me? Empowering your finances, preserving your benefits. This presentation covers financial topics that apply to people living with disabilities and their families. Information will be shared on public benefits, special needs trusts, ABLE accounts, and the charitable grant program. Both of the presenters have worked for Midwest Special Needs Trust for several years. Heather has past experience working as a medical social worker, insurance case manager, and marketing director. Casie is the Director of Trust Services for MS&T and works closely with co-trustees and guardians to help administer the trust. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology. Please join me in welcoming Heather and Casie to Real Voices, Real Choices.
Hi, I'm Heather Cooper, and this is Casie Stevens, and we're with Midwest Special Needs Trust. And we are really excited to be presenting for you today. We're going to be talking about things about your finances, and with the topic of what's in it for me, empowering your finances and preserving your benefits. So there are a few questions we'd like for you to think about as we get started, and we would like to know why it is that you're here. So are you here as a consumer? Are you here as a caretaker? Are you here as a case manager? And as you're thinking about why it is you're here, what questions it is that you're hoping to get out of our presentation today. So as we go through it, if you'll make notes, and at the end, if we haven't answered your questions, then we will get to them then.
Okay, so we have some goals for today. Our goals today are to learn about financial options available to persons with disabilities, and there are going to be 4 types. We're going to learn about 3 types of special needs trust: first-party trust, third-party trust, and pooled trust funds. And then we're also going to learn about ABLE accounts. Heather is going to talk to us about the charitable grant program, and we'll learn just a little bit about MS&T and what we do and why we do it. And then at the end, we'll be available for any questions you have. So to jump right in, we're going to talk about some special needs trust basics. Special needs trusts are established for the sole benefit of the person with a disability. When a special needs trust is established, we want to make sure that the person has been deemed disabled by the Social Security Administration. They are a financial planning tool available to individuals, families, and friends. They are utilized for supplemental needs, not basic support, and we'll go through what a supplemental need is versus a basic support. They are governed by trust language and applicable statutes. So a special needs trust is written, and then there are federal and state laws that govern how that trust is administered. Attorneys, banks, and pooled trust organizations are all options for establishing and administering a special needs trust. And the big deal about a special needs trust is that they are considered an exempt asset for SSI, Medicaid, food stamps, and HUD housing. So they don't count against somebody when there is an asset test. Medicaid says you can have this special needs trust while still receiving your Medicaid benefits. We went backwards and not forward.
I'm sorry.
We'll go forward. There we go. So we're going to learn about first-party trusts. First-party trusts are also called self-settled trusts. You may also hear them as Medicaid payback trusts, or even in the legal world, it's called a D4A. They are established by a parent, grandparent, guardian, or the court for the benefit of an individual with a disability under the age of 65. And you want to kind of keep that age in your mind going forward, because we're going to give you a couple of different ages, but first party trusts are for those under the age of 65. The individual with the disability can establish their own first party trust as well, and they are funded with the beneficiary's assets. And what that means is they are funded with the beneficiary's own funds. These funds can be a payment from Social Security, unplanned inheritance, or a settlement from a lawsuit. They can also be conserved funds. First party trusts are irrevocable, which means they can't be changed and they can't be closed. And then as well as there is a required Medicaid payback provision, which means at the end of the trust, Medicaid can put a claim on the remainder balance for the services they provided to that life beneficiary. And if you have questions about what Medicaid payback is, what that amount is, we can answer those during the Q&A.
All right, so we're going to go over some scenarios. At the end of each of Casey's topics, we're going to talk through a couple examples so we can make sure that we're understanding what it is that we've learned from her. So our first scenario is Kelly, who's 9 months old and has a physical disability. They receive a personal injury settlement in the amount of $100,000. So thinking about what we just learned from Casie, would a first-party trust be appropriate for Kelly? I'll give you a second to think about it. And yes, it would be an option for Kelly. Those funds are Kelly's, so a first-party trust would be appropriate. Our next scenario is Joseph, and he's 12, and he receives a developmental disability, and he has a developmental disability, receives an unplanned inheritance from his grandmother. Would a first-party trust be appropriate for Kelly, or Joseph? I'm sorry. Yes, very good. So since those funds are from an unplanned inheritance, a first-party trust would be appropriate. Our next scenario is Susie, who's 36, and she was diagnosed with a disabling mental illness. She receives a supplemental security income back payment of $16,000. She is also a recipient of Medicaid. Would a first-party trust be appropriate? Great job. Yes, since those funds are from a Social Security back payment, a first-party trust would be appropriate. And our last scenario in this section is Kyle, who's 58, and he's living with a developmental disability. His parents planned for his inheritance to go directly to a special needs trust. So would a first-party trust be appropriate for Kyle? Great job. No, it would not be appropriate for him. Since his family did plan ahead, Casie is going to talk with us here in a little bit about what would be a more appropriate option for Kyle.
Okay, so we're going to talk just a little bit about my dad. So my dad's name was Charlie, and he became physically disabled when he was 50 years old. So my dad was unable to work. He had to receive public benefits. And he also, years later, received a large personal injury settlement. My dad had a range of disabilities, both physical and mental illness, but his physical disabilities included congestive heart failure and pulmonary fibrosis. When he was awarded with his personal injury settlement, he came to me and he said, "What do I do? Daughter, what do I do? How do I remain on Medicaid with this money that I've received?" And I said, "Well, good thing I work in special needs trust, because I'm going to tell you what to do. We are going to open a first party special needs trust." And so that special needs trust provided my dad the opportunity to remain on Medicaid while having funds available to him for his supplemental needs. So he was able to pay for those household items. He was able to go travel. He was able to buy a vehicle with his special needs trust while still remaining on Medicaid. My dad has since passed. He passed about 10 years ago. And when he passed, his special needs trust was, it was required to pay back Medicaid for the services that Medicaid provided during his lifetime. So we closed out that trust and paid out Medicaid. And I will say that sometimes my dad wasn't always very happy with the rules surrounding the special needs trust, but he was always grateful that it was there. So the fact that it couldn't pay his rent, couldn't pay his utilities, but it could pay for all of those other monthly expenses and some of those extra special things like vacations, he was glad he had the funds available to him to do that. So just a little bit about my dad. We're going to jump into third-party trusts. So a third-party trust is funded by somebody other than the life beneficiary or their spouse. It is established by a donor, not the person with a disability. They are the donor's assets, and this can include personal funds, life insurance policies, wills and estates, 401ks, IRAs. All of those can be left to a special needs trust. A third-party trust is and can be revocable, or it can be irrevocable. And then upon the beneficiary's death, there is no Medicaid payback. The assets are then distributed how the donor wanted. So they can leave it to other family members, they can leave it to non-for-profits or other organizations, but no Medicaid payback is required with a third-party trust.
All right, so we have some more scenarios to go through, thinking particularly about the third-party trust we just learned about. The first scenario is Heath, who is 3 months old and has a seizure disorder. His grandparents want to fund a trust for him with their life insurance policy. Would a third-party trust be appropriate? Great job. Since those funds are Heath's grandparents, a third-party trust would definitely be a great option. The next one is Xavier, who is 5 and has a disability. His family has decided to save money for him, each contributing up to $5,000. Would a third-party trust be appropriate? Great job. Yes, those funds would be considered his family, so a third-party trust would be appropriate. Next is Connie, who's 45 and has a mental illness. Connie's mother left her an $80,000 inheritance. The will directed the funds to go to a special needs trust. Would a third-party trust be appropriate? And yes, it is. Since Connie's mom planned ahead and provided the special direction in her will as to where those funds should go, then a third-party trust is definitely appropriate. Our last scenario is Sandy, who's 60 and has a physical disability. She receives an unplanned inheritance of $14,000. Would a third-party trust be appropriate for Sandy? The answer is no. Since those funds are from an unplanned inheritance, they can't go to a third-party trust, but they can go to a first-party trust.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the last special needs trust, which is a pooled trust. Pooled trusts are established by a non-for-profit organization with individual beneficiaries creating accounts within a larger trust. These accounts are invested together, but each beneficiary's sub-account remains their own. This is usually a lower cost option than using an attorney or a bank or a corporate trustee. First-party trust must be established by the parent, grandparent, guardian, or the court, or the disabled individual of any age. So you heard how I said in the very, very beginning that first-party trust must be established for somebody under the age of 65. With a pooled trust, somebody can be over the age of 65. However, Medicaid may impose a transfer penalty. And if you have questions about what that transfer penalty is or what the state rules are regarding that, please feel free to give us a call. When a pooled trust closes, when a sub-account within a pooled trust closes, the remainder funds are used to help others with disabilities. And here at MS&T, we administer the charitable grant program, which Heather will teach us about later.
All right, so we have some more scenarios to go through. Jacob is 1 and has a personal injury settlement of nearly $200,000. His family goes to a bank to set up a special needs trust, but the bank doesn't accept the trust because the assets don't meet their minimum balance. So would a pooled trust be appropriate in Jacob's case? Very good. A pooled trust had very low minimum balances, so a pooled trust would definitely be an appropriate option for Jacob. And it would go into a first-party trust. Anne is 22 and has a mental illness. She receives an unplanned inheritance of $95,000. The attorney administering the will tells Anne she needs a special needs trust, but he does not have the staff to provide the correct oversight for this type of trust. Would a pooled trust be appropriate for Anne? Very good. So yes, a pooled trust would be appropriate for Anne, and it would go into a first-party trust. Regina is 60 and receives a small life insurance policy from her husband. She has not been deemed disabled by Social Security and is not receiving any public benefits. Would a pooled trust be appropriate for Regina? Excellent. No, it would not be an option for her. She is not receiving any disability benefits or public benefits, and so there's no need for her to open a pooled trust. Margaret is 70 and living in a skilled facility. She is the beneficiary on her husband's retirement account. She needs to remain eligible for Medicaid. Would a pooled trust be appropriate for Margaret? This one is a little tricky, so it's maybe. So Margaret might be eligible for a pooled trust depending on her state's Medicaid rules, as Casie mentioned. So she should call both the Medicaid office and her local pooled trust organization to see if it's an option for her.
Okay, so at the very, very beginning, remember back we talked about how special needs trusts can only pay for supplemental needs. This is a list of those supplemental needs that a special needs trust can pay for. It is not exhaustive, which means it is not the only things we can pay for. There are lots of things a special needs trust can pay for that are not on this list. But for example, medical expenses, dental expenses, therapy, education, clothing, transportation, travel expenses, phone, cable, internet, entertainment items, and events. We'll pay for any kind of household items, so those regular sundries that folks have. Non-grocery items is how that breaks down. You'll see that I always recommend an irrevocable prepaid burial policy be purchased with funds from a special needs trust, because at the end of the trust, and the beneficiary passes away, we are not able to pay for those funeral costs. So a special needs trust cannot pay for the life beneficiary's funeral once the beneficiary's passed away, but can pay for it while they're living. And then the other important thing on here is a special needs trust can fund an ABLE account, which we will talk about here in just a few minutes. You don't see on here, what don't you see? You don't see rent, you don't see utilities, and you don't see food. That's because those expenses are not allowable expenses from a special needs trust. We can talk about how maybe an ABLE account and a special needs trust can work together to cover all monthly expenses, but the rent and mortgage or room and board cannot come from a special needs trust. So before we move on, I just want to give us just a few minutes that if you have questions about special needs trust, any of the three types of special needs trust, go ahead, take a few minutes to write down your questions before we move on to the ABLE account. So we're going to jump into the ABLE account, which is the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act of 2014. A little bit about the ABLE account is that it's available as a financial planning tool for persons with disabilities and their families. So very similar to a special needs trust, which is also a financial planning tool for persons with disabilities and their families. It is similar to a 529 savings plan, which means it's very, very similar to the college savings plan that parents often put money in for their children. It provides autonomy and independence for individuals. There's nobody telling you you can't use it for a certain thing. There are rules regarding distributions from an ABLE account, but nobody's telling you what you can and can't do. And here are some details. So an individual must be disabled before the age of 26. We learned with a special needs trust that it has to be established by a certain age, but with an ABLE account, they must be disabled before the age of 26. You can only have one account per person and up to $15,000 in deposits per year. And there is a chance that every year that amount could change, but right now it's been pretty consistent at $15,000 per year. And then there is a Medicaid payback requirement at the end of the ABLE account. And if you have more questions about how the ABLE account works or want to learn more about it, the ABLE account website is moable.com. So qualified distributions from an ABLE account include assistive technologies and personal support, education, health and wellness, transportation, employment training. There are some things on here that differ from a special needs trust. So you see on here that housing can be paid for from an ABLE account. You can also see on here that expenses, including funeral expenses after the death of the beneficiary. So two major differences with a special needs trust where I can't pay for rent and I can't pay for a funeral, but your ABLE account can. And as we learned previously, a special needs trust can fund an ABLE account. And so somebody can utilize both a special needs trust and an ABLE account together to meet their monthly expenses. If you have questions on how the technicalities of when you should make a distribution for your rent, there are rules regarding that, but and we can talk about that if you have questions.
All right, so we have some more scenarios to go through, thinking particularly about the ABLE account. Jamie, who is 6 months old, was born with a developmental disability. Her grandparents want to save money for her future needs and plan to give her $10,000 a year. Would an ABLE account be appropriate for Jamie? Very good. Yes. The yearly amount her grandparents plan to save is under the $15,000 limit, so an ABLE account would definitely be appropriate. Thomas, who is 8, had a traumatic brain injury, and he receives nearly $12,000 from his personal injury settlement. His family is planning on utilizing the funds for qualified disability expenses. Is an ABLE account appropriate for Thomas? Great listening. Yes, it would be. The amount is under the $15,000 limit, and they do plan to use those funds for qualified disability expenses, and so an ABLE account would be appropriate. Joan is 30 and was disabled before the age of 26. She receives an unplanned inheritance of $8,000. Would an ABLE account be appropriate for her? Great job. Since Joan was disabled before she was 26 and the funds are under that limit, an ABLE account would definitely be appropriate. And our last scenario is Michael, who's 55. He suffers a heart attack and is no longer able to work. Social Security determines he has a disability and he starts receiving SSDI. He receives a small back payment that will put him over the asset test for Medicaid. To ensure he remains eligible for Medicaid, he would like to open an ABLE account. Would an ABLE account be appropriate for Michael? Great job. No, it would not. Since Michael did not become disabled until after the age of 26, an ABLE account would not be appropriate. But a first-party trust would be an appropriate option for Michael.
Okay, so we're going to learn just a little bit about Midwest Special Needs Trust. We were created out of kind of a necessity. So our founding board member in the 80s realized that there was no way to save for his loved one with a disability after his passing. There was no way for his son to receive an inheritance because that would impact his benefits. And so we were created by Missouri state statute in 1989 to administer special needs trusts, kind of one of the first in the nation and definitely ahead of the time. Federal special needs trust laws were passed in 1993. We have staff and board of trustees with family members with disabilities. So we do understand what the needs of individuals with disabilities are and kind of their unique circumstances. Our board is governor appointed and are committed to accessibility and affordability. Our fees are significantly lower than what you'll find at a bank or with an attorney or even another pooled trust organization. We are a non-for-profit 501c3, and we serve Missouri and all of the surrounding states. We may have been established by state statute, but we receive no state or federal appropriation, so we are all self-funded. Managed by professionals who are familiar with public funding and state and federal laws and regulations. And I'm going to read this next sentence really slowly because I feel like it tells everybody why we do what we do. Our experiences and dedication to our families allow us to understand, relate to, and make policy decisions that are best not only for our loved ones, but the beneficiaries we serve. So that sums up why Heather and I are here, why our board is here, and Heather is going to teach us a little bit about the charitable grant program.
All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the charity that we have. So it is administered by our organization. It is a private charity. Just like Casie mentioned, we don't receive any federal or state funding for it. We provide grants up to $1,500 and services or items that aren't covered by insurance or public benefits. Grants can be approved for a wide range of things, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those things here in a minute. We do have two types of grants. One is our urgent requests, and those are all medical requests, all dental care, dentures, those types of things that kind of need a little bit more need to be looked at a little bit more often. So we review those monthly. All other requests that we receive are reviewed by our board, and those are reviewed quarterly. So our eligibility for our charitable program is one, that the person does have to be a Missouri resident. So Casie mentioned that our trusts are Missouri and all 8 surrounding states. Our charity is just for residents of Missouri. The person does have to have a disability determined by Social Security. So there are other ways of determining disability, but for our charitable program, we follow Social Security's guidelines on those. And the next qualification is that the income does have to be under the federal poverty guidelines. Those guidelines are updated each year, and as they're updated, then we update our policies. We do look at household income, so it depends on how many people live in the home, and then that amount has to be under the federal poverty guidelines. And the person is not allowed to have a special needs trust or an ABLE account. We do require those that have those types of funds to use those monies first, and we save our charitable program for those that don't have those options available for them. And grants are not guaranteed. So if you do qualify for our charitable program, you're not guaranteed a grant. We do have a lot of people that apply for our charitable program, and we are limited in our funding each year. So we do the best that we can, but you're definitely not guaranteed a grant. There is an application that needs to be completed if you want to apply for our program. That application can be found on our website, which we will provide a little bit later. I can also mail them or email them to you if you need. We require an award letter from Social Security. So there are lots of different forms that people get from Social Security or other public benefits that they're receiving. So off to the right here, I've put an example of what an award letter is. It is the one that's written in letter form. I've taken out some of this information. I did find this online, so I don't know if this is a real person or not, but just in case it was, I did delete their information, but it will have a B and C number, and then it will have reference letters, and those letters tell us what type of Social Security benefits the person's receiving. It will also include what the monthly income is. So when we ask for an award letter, this is what we're requiring. If you don't receive this type of letter from Social Security each year, then you can call the Social Security office and request one. You can also print one off of their website as well. So along with the award letter, we do need proof of income for any other income that the person applying receives, or proof of income for everyone else who lives in the home. So when I talk about looking at household income, we do look at everyone in the home, no matter the age of the person or the relationship of the person that lives there. We do just strictly look at household income, and we look at all income before anything is taken out. So that gross income, before insurance is taken out, before maybe monthly expenses are taken out. We look at the very, very beginning what that income is, and then that has to be under the federal poverty guidelines. And then we also need an estimate for the item or service that is being requested. If someone is needing dental care, then we do require them to go to a dentist beforehand, have an evaluation done, and then provide a treatment plan showing what it is that the person needs and what the cost of that is. Since we cover the whole state, costs are really different everywhere. So we do need specific information about the specific place that you're wanting to go and their costs. And if you are wanting some hearing aids, then we would require you to go see an audiologist, provide a hearing evaluation, and then provide an estimate for what the cost is. So here is not an exhaustive list, but an idea of some of the things that our charitable program has helped with in the past. Definitely our number one request is dental care and dentures, all of those things that aren't covered by Medicaid or by private insurance. Hearing aids, eyeglasses, modifications to homes and vehicles, orthotics, assistive devices, household items, a wide range of things. There is a small list of things that we don't help with, and it's similar to the list that special needs trusts cannot help with. So we don't pay for any housing expenses, we don't pay for food and any utilities, we don't pay any past bills. So if you've already been to the dentist and you have a dental bill, that's not something that we could pay for, but we could pay for future dental costs. Perhaps. And then we also don't purchase vehicles. So we can help with modifications to vehicles, but we don't help purchase them. Other than those things, there is a wide range of things that a person can apply for. So if you're applying for a general grant, this chart would be helpful for you. Off to the left shows when our deadlines are. The chart or the list in the middle shows when our board will meet, and then the list off to the right lets you know when those letters will be mailed out. So right now we're accepting applications until the end of September. Then our board would review those applications in November, and then I'll mail the letter out by the end of November, so the person would receive it at the beginning of December. And here are just some ideas about some grants that we have approved in the past. Tammy was 16 and she needed a communication device. The one that she was using was 20 years old, which is ancient in technology, years. So we were able to provide an iPad that had an app on there that she could use. But one of the nice things about it was that it grew with her. As she gets older, she can continue using that iPad. And if the app doesn't work for her any longer, then other apps can be purchased and used on that iPad. Scott is 33 and he had a physical disability. And his disability affected his fine motor skills. And so the lock that was on his home, he couldn't do it on his own. He would have to rely on his caregivers to unlock or lock his doors. And Scott was pretty independent. He didn't have to have caregivers there with him all the time. So if he went into town to go to the grocery store or something, and his caregivers weren't there, then he wasn't able to lock the door behind him. He would just have to keep it unlocked. Or if he came home at night and no caregivers were there, he just have to keep his door unlocked all night until a caregiver might come the next day to be able to lock it for him. So it's definitely not a very safe environment. But his income was just so low that he just couldn't afford to provide the type of lock that was going to be helpful for him. So we were able to provide a specific lock that he is able to do himself, and of course provided a lot of safety and independence for him. Fran was 75 at the time, and she needed a hearing aid that we were able to provide for her. Anthony was 2, and we were able to provide some sensory equipment for him. He was receiving therapy and using the equipment in his therapy sessions, but he wasn't able to, or his family wasn't able to purchase those items for him at home. So we were able to purchase those so he could use them at home as well. All right, so that wraps up our presentation for today. We do want to go back and think about those first questions that we asked. Why are you here? What's in it for you? Are you here as a consumer? Are you here as a caretaker? Are you here as a case manager? And hopefully Casie and I were able to answer your questions, but if not, I hope that you jotted them down, and we'll have a few minutes here in a minute to answer those questions for you. Here is our contact information. Feel free to email us or call us if you have any questions that we're not able to get to today, or if you, later on think of something, please feel free to give us a call anytime.
One more slide.
And then here at the end of our slides, we do hope that you'll use these later on as information for our programs and about the ABLE accounts. But we did want to include a list of terminology that we use and what it means. So you might go back later and think, oh no, I don't know what a co-trustee means. So we hope that this will be some helpful information for you.
Well, and thank you. We want to thank you for the opportunity to listen to us today. We look forward to talking with you live in just a bit. And please, again, feel free to contact us with any questions that you may have. So I'm going to give our phone number. It's 573-256-5055. And it's also available on the handouts as well. Yes, credit card. So the question is, can credit card bills be paid with one of the trusts? Yes, credit card bills can be paid as long as we have receipts that show the purchases made at the stores with the credit card. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Melvin. So Donna asked, no state matching funds. So we are established by state statute, but receive no state or federal appropriation. So yes, we are self-funded. There's no state matching funds within the budget. Thank you all for coming this morning. I know that we're kind of at that lunch hour and everybody's probably getting real hungry. So. So the question is, as a consumer, should I let my parents set up a special needs trust, follow their death? So I absolutely recommend that parents give me a call if they want to set up a special needs trust for their loved one. Feel free to pass on our information to any parents that you may know. So the question is, and now, so can I put my extra into an ABLE account for her? I think that's a very interesting question. Anybody can contribute to an ABLE account. It doesn't just have to be the recipient of the ABLE account, the owner of the ABLE account. So if you want to give money to your daughter's ABLE account, you can do so up to $15,000 per year. Let's see, our next question is, yes, so the ABLE account recently went through, they have a new contractor doing their portal and all of their banking information. It is probably best to start at the moable.com to get information on the contact. You may also try the stable account. They also have good contact information there. We've had some good questions today. Can all of the money in the ABLE account be used? If so, do you pay back Medicaid then, or does the ABLE account continue with a zero balance? The technicalities of the ABLE account and how it sits at $0, I'm not sure. Probably a better question for the ABLE account administrators. If there's no money in the account, then there's no Medicaid payback, right? Because there's nothing to pay back. But I'm not sure if it can sit at $0 for a certain amount of time. Clothing is an allowable expense from a special needs trust.
Special needs clothing can be purchased from a charitable grant as well.
Yes. Can a spouse under someone who is disabled receive dental care if needing something that Medicaid doesn't cover? So under a trust, the trust can only be used for the person it's set up for. We can't pay for dental for a spouse.
The same with our charitable program. So our charity is just for the person that has the disability. So we can't Sometimes we can provide like maybe a household item for other people that live in the home as well. But like for dental care, anything specific like that, it would just be for the person who is receiving the disability benefits.
Give it just a few more minutes to see if anybody has any other questions. These are really great questions. So we have a question on where do I go to find special needs clothing? There are some companies that specialize in special needs clothing. None of them come to mind. Maybe Heather might know particularly. Okay.
You might try a medical supply store that's local to you. Everything that I've seen is something that's been online. So I'm not sure, and you know, we cover such a wide area. I'm not sure exactly what resources are in different areas, but you might try your local durable medical equipment company, or if you have internet access, searching for that online. You could also check with your local independent living center. They might have some good options for you as well.
Can a legal guardian use the money in an ABLE account for housing for both of them? No, the ABLE account can only be used for the person that owns the ABLE account. So if Sally owns the ABLE account, rent can only be paid for Sally. See what else we get. All right, well, I think that that's probably the last of our questions. Again, our contact information is in our handouts. Feel free to give us a call, send an email. We're happy to, oh, we do have one more question. So the child can't live with a parent or guardian. So if the parent or guardian has set up a rental agreement with their child, then the rent can be paid from the ABLE account, but it has to be a legal written agreement. Not saying that a child can't live with a parent or guardian, but you can't pay everybody's rent out of the ABLE account. Just a portion, or the portion of their portion of the rent, or the written agreement amount, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Heather, Casie. Thank you so much for being here today and answering everyone's questions. There were some great questions for you guys, and I know last year you guys had the same deal. I mean, people are very interested in your program, and so I think that's fantastic. So thank you all for being here again. And if we see any more questions pop up after you guys are gone, we'll certainly route those to you and so that you can address those later.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.